and welcome to episode number 74 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. I'm Sarah Sinacroce, your host, and so excited that you're here. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, I so appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Are you on my email list as well? You can get on there and also get my 4-part guide to say no to grow by going to sarahsinacroce.com/say no. So last week, I wrapped up the beta launch of my new anxiety-free marketing program. It was an amazing experience to co-create this new course together with a group of 10 wonderful entrepreneurs. And we really went deep and laughed and cried and learned more about ourselves and are now really committed to showing up even more authentically in our marketing. And for me, it was a great learning experience to let go and let things not be perfect. I think that was the main and major learning for me, to just sit back and let things happen and unfold and realize that that's what people want. And so now I will take 2 months to get more feedback from the founding members and create the content and create the web pages, and then soft launch it under the umbrella of the Gentle Business Revolution. So that's going to be the main kind of gateway. And besides the anxiety-free marketing course, I'm seeing a Gentle Business Alliance with about 25 people and a Gentle Business Mastermind up to 6 people. So I'll tell you more as I develop this, and I really want to share this publicly to show you also kind of the behind the scenes and the process that goes into creating this. So I'll keep you posted here, but if you'd already like to talk to me about it, then of course I'd love to get your feedback, and you can reach out to me via my email, sarah@sarahsinacroce.com. But now on to today's show with my guest, LaTisha Styles. LaTisha is a sought-after millennial lifestyle and money expert, helping clients take an existing skill and turn it into an online business. Through her signature training programs, LaTisha helps coaches build an online presence that serves one clear purpose: helping them gain more clients. Her work has been featured in notable publications including Forbes, Fast Company, and Business Insider. So without further ado, here's my conversation with LaTisha. Good morning, LaTisha. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. Yeah, it's already afternoon over here. We always have this time zone difference that I'm so grateful that you're getting up early for me and for recording this for my introvert audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, LaTisha, tell us, I just read the bio, the official bio, right, in the intro. I want to know the unofficial stuff. I want you to tell us about LaTisha, who you are, how you built your business, and how you did that being an introvert. So tell us all about that.
So I will take you back, because I've been doing online marketing for 8+ years. So I'll kind of take you back to the beginning of that, which is when I had started a personal finance blog. And when I started that blog, my goal was really to kind of give myself something to do, because I graduated into the Great Recession. I couldn't find a job. It took me 11 months to find a job. And so in the meantime, I said, well, how can I show employers that I actually have knowledge and something to share? And that's what I did. I started my personal finance blog. And then a few years into it, I realized that it was something that I could potentially take full time. So then that became my goal. Even after getting a full-time job, my goal was to become a self-sustaining full-time blogger. And, a couple years later, I was able to quit my job, and I had several months of expenses saved up. But unfortunately, I couldn't quite get the business model to work. I couldn't get the income to come in the way that I wanted it to. And now looking back, I see that there were a couple things that were holding me back, especially as an introvert. One of the main things being my desire to actually ask for help and reach out. And I ended up back in the workforce. And this time it was not because I really wanted a job. It was because I felt like I had to get one. So I felt sort of forced to go back to a cubicle and something that I didn't feel was right for me. Then I discovered that if I would use my unique skill, that I could take that unique skill and offer it to business owners. So I started offering digital marketing services. I finally reached out. I hired my own coach. I started to get help in the areas of how to properly set up the business, how to actually reach out and get clients. And what I discovered was that the suggestions that I was given were much more suited to extroverts. It was suggestions like go to the Chamber of Commerce and give a presentation, go to networking events, pass out your business card. And I saw right away that if I couldn't make those things work, and if I wasn't willing to become something that I'm not, then none of it was going to work for me. And so that's when I decided to create my own introvert-friendly system. I thought there's got to be some way that I can cater to my specific personality type, because it's not something that you can just get over. It's a personality type. And I decided instead to look for ways to kind of maximize that. And that's when I discovered that I could create my own introvert-friendly system. I started using my years of digital marketing experience and content creation, started learning how to generate leads and things like that. And that's when I was able to turn my coaching and consulting business into a full-time income. I was able to quit my job, and I've been self-employed for about 3+ years now, so a little over 3 years. And it's all because I didn't try to go against my introverted nature. Instead, I decided to work with it.
That's wonderful. I wish I had realized that way earlier as well, because it's true. If you just apply whatever guru, out there tells you to do, you probably oftentimes realize maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months, maybe a year later that just doesn't work for you. And it's not because you're broken or you're just not good at it. It's just, it doesn't fit your personality type. You're so right.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about, what you found out. So how do you now generate revenue, and what did you find that works for you?
Sure. So I started looking at specifically what things kind of drained me the most. And then I tried to create repeatable systems around those. So systems where I wouldn't necessarily have to provide that energy. One of the main things was me repeating my services, my offers, what I did over and over and over again. And, a lot of times people will say, well, you can just list out what you do on your website. But even though someone might read what's on your website, they're still going to have several different questions. And I noticed that I was getting a lot of the same questions over and over again. So what I did was I created a short video presentation, a video sales presentation of sorts. And it essentially went through a lot of the same questions that I was getting. I was able to answer those questions on that video. I was able to explain a little bit more in depth what I do, what I offer, even sharing some case studies and testimonials. And then at the end of that video, I would ask them to book a call with me. And as I met people, even at networking events, I felt a lot less pressure, because when I would meet someone at a networking event, I would simply send off a quick, hey, it was nice to meet you email. And then in the email, I would send them a link to the presentation that I had, that I would say something like, hey, here's a little bit more details on what we discussed if you'd like to, kind of take a look. And it made the phone calls that I got that much easier, because they were already familiar with who I am, what I offer, and how I can help them.
That's very interesting. But you still had to do the networking events, or that was just in the beginning to kind of get this started?
No, I didn't have to do the networking events, but when I went to networking events or meetups for local organizations, I didn't feel as pressured as I used to in the past. I kind of set my rule, which was I need to meet at least one person. And if I meet one person, then I'm allowed to go. I would meet that one person, and, sometimes I would meet several other people, but there just wasn't that same pressure to have to network with everyone because I was able to use the systems that I put in place.
Yeah, and I can just think of this presentation being a great resource also for people, those typical coffee meetings requests that we all make so much. It's like, oh, can we meet for coffee? And I want to find out more about, what you do. I'm like, yeah, I don't really do that. So here's my presentation, and, then let me know if you still want to meet. Mm-hmm.
Right. And the thing is that we typically tend to attract clients who want to work with us, who are similar to us. So the type of person who's going to say, well, I don't want to watch the presentation, I only want to meet you for coffee, is probably not the best fit as a client, because it's someone who is always going to want coffee dates or meeting in person, or they're likely an extrovert and they likely gain their energy from talking your ear off. And in that case, it's probably not going to be a good fit when it comes to having them on as a client.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder to actually stick to your rules, even though everybody else might be doing it differently. Doesn't mean that you have to always do what the client requests, or he's not even a client yet. He's just a potential client, if that, right? So just because they're used to coffee meetings or lunch meetings, and you then politely decline and say, hey, here's how I do it. Yeah, it's a bit scary because it's different from everyone else, but you're so right. This potential client might not even be an ideal client for you if that's what he insists on. So great advice. Yeah. So how are you then today currently generating revenue? Is it all passive revenue, or do you work one-on-one with clients too?
So I have a couple of programs. I have a one-on-one program for doing one-on-one coaching, digital marketing. I have a group program as well, which is a little bit more standardized for clients who want to go through this process of kind of setting up their own introvert-friendly system. And then I do have some passive courses and programs that are kind of on-demand, do-it-yourself. I will say that my revenue is split out. It's still about 60% towards the one-on-one group program and about 40% from the passive programs.
Right. I'm curious, how do you drive traffic, or how do you get people's interest for these recurring programs? Is it all just website traffic that then converts, or do you have a webinar, or how do you do that?
Right. So my video sales presentation is a webinar, and the way that I get traffic into that webinar is by placing ads on Facebook, and also have been starting to place some ads on YouTube as well, finding people where they are, wherever they're searching for something like this, so that they find me in my presentation first, or even during their search process, and then they can come into and join the program from there.
Right. So paid advertising basically to get traffic to the webinar.
Yep.
Wonderful. Let's talk about your introverted superpowers. So what would you say is your biggest strength when it comes to being an introverted entrepreneur?
I will say my biggest strength is that I'm a really good listener, but kind of going into that or amplifying that just a little bit to make it my biggest strength is that I listen for what people say, but I can also listen for what they don't say. And it's one of the things that has made me particularly good at sales is I can hear not only what this potential client is giving me, like what they're saying, but also what they're avoiding and what they're not saying and what they, kind of don't want to talk about. And that's allowed me to have much greater and much more in-depth conversations so I can help my clients get even better results.
It's kind of this gap that we're looking at when we talk about sales, right? It's always like you got to find that gap. And the gap is usually what people are not necessarily expressing. And the pushy salesperson would probably like give you all these pushy questions. And what you're saying, if I hear that right, is you hear it without them actually expressing it.
Absolutely. And I think this is a skill that many introverts have. And it's one thing that does make us really good at sales is that we are really good at, number one, listening. But if we get even better at listening for what, listening for what we're expecting to hear, but what we're not quite hearing, and really paying attention to what's not being said. I think that's something that will improve and increase your sales even that much more.
Yeah, and I would even go further and say it's not just the words that are not being said, but especially if we have video, like nowadays we're doing Zoom, right? So if we can see facial expressions as introverts, especially highly sensitive introverts, we really can see energy shifts, for example. And then, obviously being empathic with our replies and not just say, oh, I can see that, you're scared or whatever. That would be, again,
Right.
Probably the pushy approach, but using our empathy then to just kind of guide the clients toward how you can help them, for example.
Absolutely.
What about something that you're still challenged by because you're an introvert? Some kind of, I don't like to call it weakness, but it's something that you're still working on.
I will say I am still working on being comfortable asking for help. And I'm not sure if this is necessarily just because I'm an introvert or it's just the way that I've grown up, but I still sort of have a hard time asking others for help. I feel like I can do it all myself, and I want that accomplishment of being able to say that I've done it myself. But what I've discovered and what I've learned in entrepreneurship is that there's no such thing as a successful self-made entrepreneur. Everyone has gotten help at some point along their journey. And it's important for me to realize that and decide that I am going to humble myself to ask for help, whether it's, finding a mentor, whether it's hiring a coach, whether it's just having chats every other week with a mastermind buddy and a friend who can kind of still be that accountability partner and support me. That's sort of the one area where I'm getting better, but it's still a little bit difficult for me to fully admit and say, hey, this is where I need help, and I'd love your help with this specifically.
So let me tell you that, yes, you are definitely not the first guest on this podcast that struggles with that, me included. So it's definitely an introvert thing. I want to find out from you why you think that is. So why are introverts more struggling with asking for help?
I would say because for me personally, I know I'm in my head a lot. I am thinking and assuming sometimes what that response might be. And then often I'll say something like, well, it's not even worth it because, they're probably going to say this. And so one of the things that I think can be our biggest strength, as we, make sales, can also be one of our greatest weaknesses as, we start assuming what people might think, but then assuming to the negative side instead of either assuming like, hey, they'd be happy to help, or not making any assumption at all.
Yeah, I agree. And it's almost kind of like an arrogant thing, right? We're like, well, we figured this all out on our own already. Why would we want to ask someone else? Where an extrovert is more likely to, get feedback from other people and not even think, oh, they're not going to know, or they're just more open to feedback. And it's true that we always think, well, what am I going to learn? They probably have nothing to add. I just experienced this morning, same as you. I make it a priority to kind of go with this and learn. And so I put out a call for help on a Facebook group. And so this morning I had a chat with a guy, and to be honest with you, it confirmed some of the things that I was already thinking, but I cannot say that I, learned a lot of new things. However, it was just great to, get to know this guy and talk with him through it. And he has, experience with this kind of audience that I'm trying to target. And it was just great to create this new collaboration that, who knows, might lead to referrals or whatnot. So,
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's just kind of like, let's push ourselves a little and make that ask. I think the other thing why we're struggling with asking is we don't want to be in the spotlight. Would you agree with that? It's like we're asking for help and we're putting ourselves into the spotlight.
Yeah, I would say so. And kind of going back on what you just said about that conversation could potentially lead to referrals. I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind and think about, are those potential benefits. And I will say that sometimes we don't get the spotlight, and we may not necessarily want the spotlight, but by not putting ourselves out there and having those conversations with people, they won't give us the spotlight when it's time for a referral either. So it's important to, keep that in mind as well. And that kind of came up, especially when you just said that, because it's true. The more connections that you have, especially people who actually know you, your personality, who you are, what you do, what you offer, it's that much easier for them to refer business to you. And often, since we are sometimes the quietest person in the room, so to speak, it's difficult for someone to remember when it's time to make that referral. We might not be the one that they remember. So it's important to think about that as well.
Yeah. What we're really good at, though, is building those long-lasting, deep relationships. And so I think, this call today might have been the start of such a relationship, because we didn't go into it as it being, the sales call where he tried to sell something and I tried to sell something. It was just, casual call trying to help each other. So
Absolutely.
That might be the beginning of a long-lasting relationship. Yeah. Take me to an aha moment, some kind of story that you want to tell our listeners, either introvert related or not, business related or not. Just tell us this aha story moment.
I will say my aha moment, it honestly was that moment that I realized that I needed to go back to the workforce, and I wasn't quite ready or didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5. And I certainly didn't want to choose the job that I ended up going back to. My aha moment was when I started looking at others who are succeeding, and I kept thinking, like, what is it that they're doing differently? What is it that they have that I don't have? My aha moment was that there wasn't anything that they had that I didn't have, from a determination perspective, from a motivation perspective, but it was just a matter of me admitting that this was a personal growth moment for me. And my aha moment was me realizing that I hadn't done such a great job of reaching out and asking for help, especially as I started chatting with others. I was going to a conference that I go to every year, and I was talking to the people who, had become very successful. And I just started asking them questions like, how did you get so good at what you're doing? How did you become so successful? And they would mention, oh, I talked to so-and-so about this. You should go talk to them. I did this, and I talked to, this other person about this. You should go talk to them. And they just started leading me to all of these other resources. And that's when I realized, oh, they didn't do any of this by themselves. They actually did reach out and get help and ask for help.
Yeah, so important, I think. And I'm so glad that we're seeing more and more of this collaboration between entrepreneurs, because I've been in this, similar to you, 10 plus years. And I think there has been a trend of collaborating more and more. It wasn't always the case. Yeah. And I'm glad that we're going more and more towards this trend of helping each other. Because you're so right. You cannot build the business by yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about the 3 golden nuggets. So these are resources that you would like to share with the listeners. So the first one is a personal habit, something that you do on a regular basis that contributes to your success.
I will say personal habit, something that I do on a regular basis, is getting better with journaling and meditation. And this is something that I do almost every day. And the journaling is essentially me writing out what I'd like to achieve, how I see my life unfolding, things that I'd like to bring forward. And then the meditation is really just a time for me to quiet my mind. As introverts, we have that internal chatter going on all day, the same way an extrovert would have that external chatter going on all day. And the difference is that internal chatter can break or interrupt our actual thought process, reasoning process. And so meditation is something that's helped me learn how to quiet my mind and become a lot more focused so that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve.
I like how you said getting better at, because I think what a lot of people think when they first start meditation, they do it a couple of times and their mind just goes, monkey mind. And so
Right.
they're like, this is not for me. I can't do this. And so, yeah, what you said is so true. It's a practice. It's something that you have to do on a regular basis in order to get better at it. And like you, I'm still working on it. It's definitely work in progress. And I've been doing this for not that long, about 3 years. So, but still, I'm, constantly getting distracted. And I don't know if extroverts are better at meditation. That'd be a good topic for a podcast episode once. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'd be interested to find that out too.
Yeah, because it's true that introverts are always in their head. So maybe it's more challenging for us. I'll find out and keep you posted if I ever do an episode on that.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. What about an internet resource or a tool online that you use?
Yeah, so one of my favorite tools is something that is a start to finish for me when I'm creating my marketing funnels, my sales funnels, and those landing pages so I can deliver lead magnets and things that people are interested to sign up for. And it's a tool called ClickFunnels. It manages my landing pages. I've got some member area stuff on there. I'm able to accept payments and set up some of my passive products on there as well. So it's definitely a tool that I enjoy using. I've been using it for a little over 3 years now, about 2 years, 2.5 years. And it's one that I really like and I definitely recommend.
Wonderful. And make sure to link to it in the show notes pages. And what about a book that you would recommend and why?
A book that I would recommend. There's so many because I'm a reader and I love reading. I will say one of the best books that I've read has almost nothing to do with business. It's more of the internal game. And it's a book called Tapping into Wealth. It is about clearing out any old beliefs that are preventing you from being your best self and achieving the most that you can. And in this book particular, it's in the area of finances. And the book is by Margaret Lynch. It's a book that I really enjoy. And I would say it's one of my top books.
Wonderful. Can you recall the author? I didn't get that.
Margaret Lynch.
Margaret Lynch. Okay, I haven't read it, so I'll make sure to add it to my Kindle and definitely link to it also in the show notes. Wonderful. We're almost getting to the end. I have 2 more questions, but this has been a wonderful conversation. Thanks so much, LaTisha. I learned a lot during our conversation. What I want to still ask you is, first of all, what does marketing with integrity mean for you, and how do you apply that into your business?
Wow, that's a great question. Especially these days, marketing is, I don't want to say it's a lot more prevalent, but it's just much easier to see a lot of the different marketing tactics since much of the marketing that we're doing is online.
Mm-hmm.
I will say marketing with integrity is being really, really clear on who you want to work with and who is that person who can get the best results with your service, especially because I work with service-based entrepreneurs. And I always say to my clients, your ideal client, like, yes, you've got a list of, demographics and where they are in their life or business or health or whatever it is. But your ideal client is that person who can get the best results with you, meaning they've got to meet this specific set of criteria or you shouldn't accept them as a client. And I think I would say that's the best example I can provide of what marketing with integrity means to me. It's being really clear about who you can help and being willing to turn away those whom you cannot.
Yeah. Would you agree that in order to actually know who's your ideal client, there's also some inner work? You just referred to the, tapping into wealth. That's part of the inner work. Would you agree that there's also some kind of inner work that needs to be done first? So actually know who you are so that then you can find the client who would, like to work with you.
Oh, absolutely. I think this journey of entrepreneurship, I will say, is one of the best ways to become a better person
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many lessons in your journey to achieve. And as you get there, yes, you do have to develop yourself and become that person that has that integrity. In this instance, you might have that integrity in other areas of your life, but as you're learning, you've got to also learn where that applies in other areas as well.
Yeah, wonderful. And you learned that the hard way, right? You're like, you had to go back to the 9 to 5 in order to realize, okay, this wasn't working. So what do I do now so that the second time it will work?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, last question. I want to know what you're grateful for today or this week or this year, which just started.
Yeah, I will start what I'm grateful for this year. I know we're only a couple days into the year, but I feel like this year has started off with a lot more focus, a lot more calm, and a lot more reflection on my better qualities than the past couple years, which were a bit more scattered, maybe a little bit more focused on what other people were doing and not having as much confidence in myself and my abilities. So I'm very thankful that this year has felt the way that it's felt, and that I am really seeing and viewing with a clear eye my specific path and what is meant for me versus focusing on what others may have.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. And I agree with you. I feel the same. Must be the 2019 energy. Well, thanks so much, LaTisha. I will mention again that people can visit you at LaTishaStyles.com. And I'll also, I don't have it in front of me now, but I will mention your free giveaway when I record the outro separately. So thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. And
awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Let's be in touch, okay?
Definitely.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Introverted Biz Growth podcast. Check out LaTisha's website at LaTishaStyles.com. And she has also a great freebie, the 7 steps to gain more clients using webinars, which you can get for free at LaTishaStyles.com/free gift. You'll find this episode's show notes with all the links and the beautiful show note page at sarahsanacroce.com/episode 74. And if you're listening to this show on a mobile device, you can click on the description and you'll actually find all the clickable links in there too. This is Sarah Sanacroce signing off from the Introverted Biz Growth podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference. Speak to you next week.